Just do a little, make sure everybody's on mute before I start the meeting. All right, it's 4:30. I'll call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation, Tla-o-qui-aht. Notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. We have recommend that pursuant to Section 15 of the District of Tofino Meeting Procedure Bylaw number 1229/2016 as amended, the July 12th, 2022 regular meeting be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcasted on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel, and that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at Municipal Hall 121 3rd Street in Tofino, BC. Through unanimous consent, if there's no objections, I'll move, and that, seeing no objections, that motion is carried. And also through unanimous consent, I'll move that the July 12th, 2022 regular council agenda be adopted. Seeing no objection, the agenda is adopted. And moving on to the consent agenda, I recommend through unanimous consent that the items 4.1 to 4.4 of the consent agenda on the regular meeting held July 12th, 2022 be approved and received. Seeing no objection, the motion's carried. Do we have public comment on any agenda items, Ms. Best?
Thank you, Mayor Law. We do have some participants in the meeting today, so I just would like to remind those participants that using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen is how you can submit a comment on the agenda, and you just have to state your name, your address, and what items you'd like to speak on. So I'm just going to pause here for a moment. So if those members of the public would like to use that function, we'll see if that little red window pops up. Seeing none, I'm just going to ask a second time to see if there's any comments. Seeing none. Okay, it looks like we have no comments today.
All right, we'll move on to item 7, the mayor's report. The first thing on my report is July 1st. It was wonderful to be in a pit-sit for the Martin family, raising of their totem. And that was Joe Martin, of course, the master carver, and the family member working on that with course all the rest of his family and many other people in the community, both TFN and some from Tofino. That was a wonderful experience, and I was very honored to be there. Second, I don't know if you guys know this, but I learned today that Tofino made the Time magazine top 50 greatest places. That's that's wild to get on that list, and it was pretty funny thinking about all the other great places there are in Canada and BC and around Vancouver Island especially. But it's fun. We made that list, so that's super exciting. And I just want to point out, we had a service level review, and that came back great, and being at FCM again. Like my last mayor's report, I was happy to hear that both Tofino staff and council are doing remarkably well, and it's an excellent place to be part of local government. And now we get a little shout out from Time magazine, so that's a little bit of a trifecta. But I do want to point out, none of that comes without hard work and dedication. For years and years and years, and all the people that have put their time and effort and volunteered in Tofino or worked with their businesses or organizations to make Tofino an excellent place to live and visit. It's just a wonderful little shout out. Third thing on my list for Mayor's Report is just a little note about the Tofino free shuttle. It's one of the things I think makes Tofino fantastic. It's our free shuttle. and paid for, of course, through the RMI funding. And a lot of people ask, why is it free? As as if it would be better if we charged. But it's a wonderful service, and it is paid for through our participation in as a resort community in the resort municipality initiative. So that's great. And I also want to take the time to take a shout out. I'm traveling actually right now, and I've run into lots and lots of people wherever I go that have been to Tofino very recently, and have wonderful things to say about the mop and how clean and organized and good it's looking. And so also a little shout out to all our wonderful employees and staff who work very hard and often go under the radar, making Tofino run smoothly, working on the infrastructure that we all enjoy but don't often recognize. So that's just a wonderful shout out that I've been hearing lately as I travel across BC. That's the end of my mayor's report. I see we have no delegations, no correspondence, which brings us to presentations and reports. Now, Ms. Best, I have you on the main screen. I'm just wondering if that's you making.
Oh, no, sorry. Let me just move this here. I'm going to just introduce Ms. Patterson, who is our planner, who will be presenting the TUP renewal for 760-770 Campbell Street. So I'm just going to pin her to spotlight. Can you give me a thumbs up if that is what everyone else is seeing here?
I have you on my main screen, and then everybody in little a couple little boxes. So I'm not seeing everybody, but let me just ask Councillor Chalmers, what's on your screen?
Well, I have it set to gallery so I can see everybody. So if you switch your gallery.
Oh, you know what? Mine somehow switched. I wonder why that happened. Perfect. So it was on my end. Just making sure. I'm not sure how that happened. I must have hit it by accident or something. Okay. Carry on.
Okay.
Ms. Patterson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight I will be presenting the temporary use permit application renewal. Just going to take a moment here and share my screen. So everybody should be looking at the temporary use permit for 760-770 Campbell Street. I've been practicing my smooth transitions, so hopefully that worked out okay. All right, so in summary of the report submitted, as mentioned, we evaluated the temporary use permit renewal for 760 and 770 Campbell Street. So this property is, we're actually exploring a temporary use that covers 2 lots. As you can see here is indicated by the yellow rectangles there. The temporary use, the RVs actually cross that center property line of 760 and 770. So this area is a dual zone. So it's split between a tourist commercial C5 and the small holdings district of the A1. So the temporary use that we're going to be discussing is confined to the A1 portion of the lot. This property, both properties, are within the wildlife habitat development permit area as well as the steep slopes development permit area, neither of which are triggered by the temporary use. And the properties are also found within the Peninsula OCP land use designation. The proposal put forward is to continue the operations of an 8-site residential staff campground. So there are 8 RV units. They are requesting a 3-year term, which is an extension of the 1-year term that was previously issued. So some highlights of our evaluation were that it meets the immediate need for affordable housing. Generally, it aligns with the OCP TUP framework and overall guiding principles. So the evaluation covered both the temporary use policy as well as potential for permanent change of use under the guiding principles. There was no proposal that was submitted for permanent change of use, so that was all speculative. But it was found that if there was an application put forward for permanent change, then this use would generally align with the OCP as well. So there were some updates to the permit conditions that I included on the permit as they were highlighted, but just to reiterate, similarly to what we've done with other temporary use permits, we've included the requirement to post the site plan and the caretaker information / emergency contact. So this makes sure that everyone on site is aware of how to get in touch with someone who's responsible for the on-site caretaking and management. The TUP campground info and expiry signage. So this also indicates to potential new residents that move in that the area is under a temporary use permit and is not to be considered a permanent situation for housing. There was a vegetation maintenance note that was made by Chief Baker during our inspection. So the vegetation that was surrounding some of the campers did not necessarily pose a risk, but could pose a potential risk should we experience really dry summer. And then there was also the double check valve installation. So this is pertains to water usage. So it's just basically a stopgap for just to ensure that we don't have water mixing in, contaminating our public services. Public notice was distributed both by mail and hand-delivered to both property owners and tenants within a 60-meter radius. So this was distributed 10 days prior to the meeting date as per legislatively required. It was also posted in 2 editions of the Westerly newspaper, so that was June 29th and July 6th. And to date, we had not received any response in opposition or support. Recommendation by staff today is to approve the TUP renewal as presented for a 3-year term. Any questions?
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to council for questions for Ms. Patterson. Any questions? Councillor Chalmers, go ahead.
Thanks, Ms. Patterson. I understand that you did state that there has been no application coming forward to move this to something more permanent. Have you had any indication that that might be coming forward or any sort of inquiry?
I did reach out to the property owner, just given the consideration that, we like to see that there is some sort of an intention for permanent change. At this time, there's no proposal that was put forward, but the property owner did indicate that there is a long-term plan for development that includes the property across the street. So, it is a question of servicing capacity at this time as well. So even if the property owner was to come forward with a substantial development plan, the question would be whether the district could support it in the immediate.
Okay, but they are considering that this is not just a be all end all.
That's correct. Yeah.
Councillor McMaster, and then Councillor Thick.
If I remember rightly, one of the reasons we issued this TUP for a 1-year term was so that it came back to this council, which it has done. A little concern it didn't come back before July the 5th when the TUP had expired. But from what I've seen, there's been really no efforts to improve the place. And I really think that was why we gave him a year to see what changes he was going to make and what plans he was going to come forward with. So I'm really hesitant on this, and I'd like to hear what other people have to say, but I'm not too happy with the application at the moment.
Okay, just a note before we carry on, just a matter of process. This is we're going to go around to people who would like to ask Ms. Patterson a question. And then we're going to debate, if need be, in council. Can we just a reminder? So thank you, Councillor McMaster.
If I may speak to that, sorry, apologies,
Sure.
Mayor. I know there wasn't necessarily a question, but I'm happy to address some of the concerns that Councillor McMaster had expressed.
Go ahead. If you'd like to change that to a question, go ahead. You can do that.
So regarding the application coming forward to council prior to the expiry, unfortunately, it was a scheduling issue. They were slated to come to the June 28th meeting, but due to other, it was a very tight meeting. So staff, I was informed that I wasn't able to make it on that meeting, so it was pushed to the next. So unfortunately, it did miss the deadline, but the applicant did meet the application requirements in a timely fashion. So it was merely a scheduling issue. And then speaking to the 1-year term, about the improvements to the property, Chief Baker and I did attend the property in May of this year to ensure that all the conditions had been met for that 1-year period. And we did see that there were significant improvements that had been made since the initial campground was inspected. I did snap some photos and present a bit of a gallery of befores and after, if that would be beneficial for councillors to see some of the original imagery compared to what the situation is now, for those who haven't had an opportunity to visit the site.
That is an option right now. If you'd like to, Councillor McMaster, would that suffice for a question? Would you like to see before and after pics?
No, that'll suffice. I've been down there the previous week. So.
Okay. If there's no request from other councillors, then we would carry on. Thank you, Ms. Patterson, for that. Councillor Thick, questions, and then Councillor Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Patterson. I noticed in the timeline you provided in the report, it states May 15th, 2017, received a complaint regarding illegal campground. And what do we know prior to that date of May 15th, 2017? How long was the camping going on, and what was the nature of that? I'm just curious because, you know, here we're talking about 5 years. And as Councillor McMaster said, we haven't seen any movement. So I'm just wondering, what was the nature of what happened on the property A1 in, say, 2016? Does anyone know, or can you answer that, please?
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure. I cannot speak to what happened on the property prior to. The timeline that I developed was based on information I was able to pull from our records. So unfortunately, there was nothing on file prior to that. There was in the complaint file an indication that the campground had been in operation for quite some time prior to the complaint being submitted, but there's no evidence of that. I can't speak to it.
Thank you. Moving on. Councillor Thick, do you have another question?
Yeah, so just
through the chair.
Yeah, through the chair. I would like to just say, yeah, so it's probably another year or two on the timeline where the camping was taking place then, from what you're saying here.
Potentially. I did speak with the business license inspector today, and just to follow up and ensure that all the there was a requirement to meet the condition of having a rental accommodation business license. So in that, we did explore the staff accommodation, and there was an indication that some of the trailers were being used for the Mears Vista staff accommodation. So it could very well have been, and I'm just speculating, but it could have been that there's the initial trailers on site were for staff.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
My question is, this would be the last temporary permit they would be permitted to have. I believe you're only allowed 2. So yeah, is this the last temporary use permit for this use that they can have? Technically,
no. Thank you for the question. It's legislatively, there's nothing in the Local Government Act that stipulates that a temporary use permit cannot be issued for the same use. over and over again. It's a matter of council's discretion. So, I think historically the expectation has been that when a temporary use application comes in consecutively, that there is some form of change. So there would be something added to the application that would give council something more to consider. Technically, so for this term is the 3-year renewal, but if at the end of this 3-year term and the renewal expires, they can legally apply for a new temporary use permit. It's just, as I mentioned, up to council's discretion as to whether they want to continue supporting this temporary use as a short-term land use opportunity, or if as the OCP stipulates, there is an opportunity for bridge to permanent change. So I believe that it is based on the expectation of the community that there will be a significant change, but legislatively there's no requirement.
Okay. So it's the renewal that can only happen once then?
That's correct.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's all for me.
Just, I don't have any questions. Just about the last comment there, Ms. Patterson, I just want to clarify that because we have had a significant discussions about TUPs and renewals. So you're saying that legislatively we can only renew it one time, but then if there is a significant change, they can come back and apply for another series of temporary use permits? Is that, I understood, now I say that, and I just want to put it in context because we have it as a significant issue and as one of our fairly recent TUPs, that certainly was a unique tactic by council to issue another TUP for the same property, but we required a significant change, and my understanding that was quite risky legislatively. But you're saying that that is not the case?
No, yeah. So so essentially, we are permitted to issue legislatively a temporary use permit consecutively. There's other municipalities that have temporary use permits for the same use for 20 years. It's just a matter of whether that approach aligns with the official community plan, if it aligns with the council's or the community's overall vision. It is just a tool that serves the ability to be able to allow a temporary use that's not permitted. So how we use that tool is at the discretion of council and the community. So just to be clear, if they apply at the end of this 3-year term for a new application with no conditions changed, no changes to the use for 8 RVs, legislatively, they would be permitted to do so. But from a council's perspective, it would be up to, again, your discretion as to whether or not the community wanted the temporary use to continue. So you have the option to deny the temporary use. There's no obligation for them to change any elements. Sorry,
see.
Is that any more clear? Sorry.
No, that's great. Thanks very much. Yeah. Okay. All right. Why don't we, if there's no more further questions for Ms. Patterson, then if council would like to debate this motion, we can. And if council would like to move straight into making the recommendation, I'm fine with that as well. So I'm looking to council. Would any councillors like to debate this, or can we move into making the motion and keep our debate within the motion? Seeing nobody jumping at the bit. Okay, Councillor Thick.
Yeah, can we state our views now? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm giving council generally the option to discuss this now, or we can make the recommendation. We can discuss it within the recommendation. I don't want to draw this out. So for expediency, if council would like to debate it now, I'm fine, as long as we keep it sweet and short, and then we can move to the recommendation.
Well, I don't know what the best situation here is, but I'd like to state my points of view when it's the right time.
It's up to me. It's up to council. I'm fine. Councillor Steer, do you have anything to add before I move? Or make the recommendation?
I was just going to debate with my point of view and didn't know if you wanted to do it now or in the context of once the motion was made.
Just looking for council's direction. Tell you what, let's make the recommendation and then we'll debate it within the recommendation.
Let's do that.
If you're up for it, would you like to read that?
I'd love to, but I can't get my agenda up here.
Okay,
right now.
no problem. Who's got it in front of them would like to read? Councillor Chalmers, you go ahead.
Okay, I'll move that the temporary use permit attached as Appendix 1 to the report titled Temporary Use Permit 760/770 Campbell Street, temporary staff housing dated July 12th, 2022 be issued for a period of 3 years.
Perfect. Seconded by Councillor Steer. Okay, now we can go into the debate. If you'd like to state whether you're for it or against it and your points, either way, we'll keep it nice and short and we'll go around and then we'll make the we'll call the question. Councillor Steer first, then Councillor Thick.
Great, thank you through the chair. I would just like to say that I fully support moving ahead with a 3-year temporary permit for this particular location. It is fulfilling a need right now that is sorely needed in this town. And I know that the majority of the residents in that situation are full-time working residents of Tofino. As far as I know, 90% of them are full-time working people, year-round residents of Tofino, and the lack of affordable housing in this community, as we all know over and over, is at critical junction. So I'm in full support of this. I do understand that at this point, there's not a proposal moving forward for a bridge to maybe a permanent rezoning, but I do know that there is an intention to look at developing the property, and this may or not be inclusive of a change in that zoning there. So I'm in full support of moving ahead with a 3-year TUP.
Thank you, Councillor Thick, and then I believe Councillor Chalmers, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Well, I am not in support of this recommendation for 3 reasons, and I'm very much opposed to this recommendation as proposed. I think that the nature of the CHAP, as I understand it, is to act as a bridge to be doing something more permanent. As we see in the timeline, this campground has been going on for 5, 6, 7 years, and that has been, in my opinion, long enough to test the waters. I think the spirit of granting the CHAP previously was to explore whether the proponent would be willing to, to do something, as we've all just discussed, more permanent. And I see that privilege as really the district has been more than they've gone forward in good faith, and I don't feel the proponent has done the same. So I think that, in my opinion, this temporary privilege is not being responded to in the same way that the district is trying to extend itself. And I see it as, there's no reciprocal meeting here by the proponent. So that's number one. Number two is that, again, in an A1 zoning, there is no permitted use for long-term camping. And for me, I see the need, I understand that full well, but I don't think that as a District of Tofino, we should be compromising people's living situations for the long term that, basically endorses living in a campground situation. There is no zoning for that. I know it's possible that we could create that, but again, the proponent hasn't come forward in good faith. And lastly, I'd say that I think that there's significant deficiencies in this long-term TUP proposal, and one of them is, from my point of view, is the taxpayer, the lack or the deficiencies in the taxes that are owing to the district. For example, the taxes on this A1 zoning are probably from A1, but they're not in proportion to the amount of revenue that's being derived from the use. The taxes, the DCCs, the appropriate water and sewer fees, which then falls to the remaining taxpayers in the District of Tofino. And from my point of view, I feel that we need to be more hard-nosed to the owner, who's probably making profits in excess of $6K or a month. And I think that their use of this land should be also followed through with the taxes and the amounts that are owing, and not encumbering other members of the tax-based system to support this. So I am not in support of the 3 years. I would be able to make a motion in terms of what I feel would be more appropriate at a time when everyone's had their say. So thank you. I'll stop there.
Okay. Councillor Chalmers.
Thank you. I am in support of moving forward with this TUP. From my recollection, when we initiated the 1 year time frame, we brought it back down from 3 years because we wanted to make sure that they were putting effort to follow the rules of the TUP, which I heard from Ms. Patterson was happening. We've had previous issues with TUPs where that wasn't happening, so we were a little sensitive at the time, and I am happy to hear that it has been a safe place for people to live. I do understand that a 1 year time frame to move forward on a new plan, a new business plan, a new zoning application is not a large amount of time, even though it does seem like a long time. So for the applicant to not have put something forward yet, but understand that they are working on something, it may not be what we're expecting as far as this TUP becoming a new zoning, but Ms. Patterson said something maybe across the street. So to give them the time to put their ducks in a row before something comes to us is something that I understand. And I agree with everything Councillor Steer says about how important this is for housing, for the community, for people that live in the community to have a place to live at this point while we work on other housing options. So I think for all of those reasons, it's not the best, most ideal situation. I understand Councillor Thick's viewpoints about taxes and costs of tax burden, but I think, again, it is temporary, and if zoning does come through, then we'll be able to catch up with that. So at this point, I'm comfortable supporting it for the full 3 years.
Thank you. Any of the councillors like to make a comment? It's not necessary, but no. That's fine. I am in favor of it. I think it fits the bill. I think the applicant has actually done quite a bit to meet the requirements in the year. So I'm pleased to support this going forward. It is affordable housing. Not perfect, but that's my opinion. So I am in support. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I'm just, I guess I'm in support. I'll say that. I agree with many of the comments made from Councillor Steer, Councillor Chalmers. I don't quite understand Councillor Thick's concerns. It didn't fully make sense to me. Perhaps my fault, but I guess my question is really around this. It sort of arises from the fear of temporary use permits, and are they accomplishing, the goals set out, or the conditions set out in the permit. And also, if we're looking for continued sort of improvement and working towards a better solution throughout the period, I'm just wondering if in terms of inspecting and checking up on those conditions throughout the period of the permit, does it just happen once at the beginning when we issue the permit, or is it done on an annual basis? I think I'd be more comfortable with it if there was some sort of ongoing inspection of the temporary use, the conditions, to see that they're continually being met year after year, maybe at time of business licensing or something. So I guess that's a question for staff, but I'm expressing support as it is for 3 years.
May I make a suggestion that we vote on the motion, and then that's something that we can bring to staff if we'd like to discuss the ongoing observation or assessment of these kind of TUPs.
I'd be happy with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor McMaster, I see you reaching for your.
Yeah, I recognise the need for affordable housing, but I can't support 3 years. But I will support the TUP, but not for 3 years.
Okay. Well, that is what's before us. So if anybody wants to make an amendment, they can do so. It won't necessarily be supported, but we can vote on that. Otherwise, we're just going to vote on the motion before us. So now's your chance. I can look to council if you want to just do a quick question for council. How many people would support the motion that's before us? Well, I was just calling the question, I suppose. I'll tell you what then. Why don't I call the question? If it's defeated, then we can move on to something else, unless somebody has an amendment they would like to make right now. Councillor Thick. You're on mute.
Can we suggest a 1 year? I think that the other reason I'm not in favor of 3 years is it's also putting this responsibility onto the next council. And this was begun at, this council's term. And here it is again, pushing it further down the road. I mean, for me personally, the furthest I can live with is 1 year. I don't know how the others feel. So I would be willing to meet at that in the middle at 1 year, but 3 years is not something I could support.
Okay, well, I can go around council. I'm happy with 3 years. I think it's reasonable, personally. Councillor Challenger, you haven't spoken yet. I'd love to hear you.
No, thanks. I am losing my voice a little, so I've been a bit quiet, but I am happy with 3 years, and so I'm happy to support that.
Councillor Steer, Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, I'll support 3 years as well.
Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, that's what I support.
Okay, Councillor Chalmers.
I'll support 3 years as well.
Okay. Well, in that case, then I think we'll just call the question. And then, so all those in favor of the motion that's before us? Opposed? Councillor Thick, Councillor McMaster are opposed. The motion is carried. Thank you. I believe now we have a wastewater treatment plant update, a verbal report from our Infrastructure and Public Works. Welcome.
All right, hello, Mayor and Council and members of the public. My name is Simon Kirkland. I'm recently the Manager of Capital Projects, and I'm pleased to share a brief project update on the wastewater treatment plant. So I'll share my screen. And trust everyone can see the screen, so I'll continue. All right, so a quick overview of what I'll run through is an update on what's occurred since the last report to council in February 2022 up until now, which will lead into a project staffing update from the district side, design update, and a look ahead to immediate upcoming program milestones. And then I can field any questions or comments regarding the project after that. So since February 2022, we've designed collaboratively with the engineering team, the general contracting team, and collaborating with major equipment suppliers to design a new wastewater treatment facility utilizing the integrated fixed film activated sludge technology, abbreviated to IFAS. Through the months, it's been lots of challenges going back and forth, trying to figure out and determine the best value for money going forward, maintaining fit for purpose in the technology and providing a facility that still is of very high quality with robust equipment that will be easy to maintain and operate and will last for the length of the service life for the facility. We've been regularly checking in, coordinating with provincial staff on figuring out the finalizing funding streams. We've been developing construction contracts with our legal counsel and with the contracting team. We're getting into the final stages of the terms of that contract, and we are implementing a project staffing team to follow. So that's myself as the project manager of major capital projects, assuming the role last week. We're looking to posting a project admin / finance person or role later this month. And we're still tracking to put a senior plant operator position in place mid-2023. So moving to the design updates. So at this time, we have a 100% design in place, which is currently being priced by the general contractor. They're firming up a Class A estimate. And within that, we are also making some minor optimizations to the design as the estimating teams are going through the content of the design, which is continuing to fulfill the integrated and collaborative approach to the design delivery, which we've been focused on over the last several months. A part of that, a highlight, is we've changed the location of the Main Street pump station and simplified the arrangement of it, removing public realm improvements from it and relocating it into the Main Street right-of-way, which frees up the district lot adjacent to the town hall. So here's an overview of what the new facility looks like. To put it into perspective, everyone can see where my cursor is here. This would be the general vicinity of where Industrial Way is. The new driveway to the facility would be accessed up through here with a road that will go around the entire facility. So there's lots of access and functionality from a maintenance and operations point of view. Quick walkthrough of the new process. So influent sewage is going to come in to the facility and first be processed through the headworks building, which will remove ragging and organics and grit and so on and so forth from the process. We'll dispose of it into bins down below. I'll next slide give a quick little glimpse of what the guts of the headworks building looks like. From that, any excess flow that is or increased amounts of flow will be distributed to an equalization tank to equally distribute flow through the facility into the IFAS reactors. This is the integrated fixed film activated sludge reactors, which will start clumping solids and sludge together to prepare it for the next stage of the process, which is where the secondary clarifiers are, or settlement tanks. From that, effluent is then produced, distributed along the surface of the tank into the launder troughs here, and the solids will settle down at the bottom of the tank to be separated in the process. The liquid component of that, which is getting closer to effluent quality, will be transferred through a inline UV system, which is located in the mechanical building. And the sludge or solids that accumulate at the bottom of the tank will be pushed into a centrifuge system, which is also located inside the mechanical building. So to kind of give a bit of a comparison to what the previous design was and how we've kind of reduced the impact of it, now the entire process is contained within 2 buildings instead of 4 separate buildings. The tanks with this new technology require significantly smaller footprint than what was in the previous design with the oxidization ditch technology or racetrack technology that was previously proposed. We've also cut back on a lot of, a very significant amount of cast in place concrete, which is very difficult to deliver on the West Coast, since the batch plant here is very small. So all of the tanks in the buildings are now pre-engineered or pre-manufactured structures, which will allow for significant less labor time to construct the facility, resulting in savings on the costs. On the next slide here, I've got a little bit of a cutout of the headworks building, which will take the initial influent flow of sewage as it comes in through the facility. Flow will come in, go through a screening system, which is shown up here, go through a grit removal system. The results of that will take solids and discharge it into these solid waste disposal bins, from which standard size garbage truck essentially can come, scoop the bins out, discharge the waste into the garbage trucks, take it away to the landfill. Sewage flow will go into a flow splitter box where controlled by set weirs will enter into the treatment train, and excess flow will go into the equalization tanks back here to allow for an even distribution of flow through the facility. What we've done here, so there's a prepackaged screening and grit removal equipment system, which is all provided by one supplier, which helps reduce cost and just ease of efficiency for installing it. We've sized the disposal bins appropriately for the quantity of solids that will be removed from the sewage stream. We've got a large overhead door here for the bin removal, so it's easy for staff when maintaining and operating the facility. And we've got an independent odor control system. It's just hiding around here on the backside of the building, which will suck all or remove all the odor from the facility to mitigate any odor concerns. Moving on to the mechanical building. Within the mechanical building, we have an equipment gallery, which houses all the pumps. The UV system is housed in this area. There's an electrical room. We've got room within the gallery for future expansion, should we need to install equipment in the future past the 20-year design flows. We've got the admin functions are combined within the mechanical building here. So there's a lunchroom, kitchenette, washroom, shower, locker area, a laboratory, so we can do sampling and testing of the effluent and sewage as it travels through the facility. Control room with windows for viewing into the process, or the equipment gallery and the centrifuge process area. We've combined the sludge or dewatering room or building into this and incorporated it into this mechanical building structure, eliminating another building that was shown in the previous design. And the centrifuges are housed here, which will discharge sewage down below into another disposal bin down below here, which will likely at first be required to be removed and taken to the composting facility once a week. And outside we have some electrical distributions. We have a transformer here, a standby diesel generator here, and another smaller odor control system, which will manage any odors from the centrifuge area. So moving on, so I will obviously field any questions that anyone has, and I can circle back to these slides. So upcoming program milestones. So currently the general contractor is working through completing a Class A estimate, which will roll into the construction contract. Going through that process, there are some design optimizations that we are finding. We're currently finalizing the terms or conditions of the construction and engineering services contracts, which will go hand in hand with the Class A estimate. We're working with the team over at the province to finalize the terms of the funding agreement, which we will then bring that to our next report to council, which will formally bring forward a recommendation on a path forward in August 2022. And following that, likely in September, we'll be in a position to mobilize the construction crew and commence site prep to construct the facility. So that's my update, and I'm sure there's a few questions and some comments. So I would open that up through the chair to the mayor and the council now.
Super. And if you can just minimize your screen there, you're sharing.
Yeah.
Well, first thing, welcome.
Yes.
Happy to have you there. It's great. It's great to see you here presenting, and it's too bad we couldn't be in person. It would have been that much better. But fantastic presentation. I very much appreciate it. Over to council. Questions? Any questions? We can also do comments if they're, constructive comments. Oh, Councillor Anderson.
I don't really have any specific questions. We've taken so long to get to this point, and it's now rolling out. So that's really great to see, and that's my main comment. And I'm glad we have people in place and it's moving ahead. And I guess the burning question is, where's the budget at now for it? You've identified some savings. Do we have any idea what those savings were and where we're at, or is it just is it still a bit early to finalize that kind of number? Yeah, so I know it's taken a lot of work. There's been a couple of setbacks over a 20-year period, really. And then there's of course been the problem with construction and the high costs that we've seen in some of the tenders that have come back. So this has been quite a go round. So I think at this point, just having seen this presentation, it's hard even to come up with questions because we've asked so many of them as we've gone through this, and I'm sort of just, my jaw is kind of dropping, going, it's really happening. So, but I guess my only question, and the burning question, would be, do we know what savings we've accomplished so far?
I can address that through the chair. We are communicating, staff are communicating with the contractor and the engineering firm on a daily basis. There is obviously a lot of instability globally in the market due to many different reasons. I do not have any, for lack of better terms, any eye poppers or kicking and screaming from the contractor at this time that would suggest that there are any significant changes to the budget that was presented to Mayor and Council in February 2022. And that will further be informed in the next formal report to Council when we move forward with that. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I think
without going too roundabout about it.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd have it completely nailed down yet, but
Yeah.
Thanks, and it's the answer that I kind of expected. So thank you, and welcome.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Councillor Steer.
Great, yeah, and thank you very much, Simon. Pleased to meet you here. I just a quick comment once again. Thank you for the walkthrough of the facility. That was wonderful to get step by step from the door to the end. The only question I have, and Councillor Anderson alluded to some of the questions around the financing, but specifically, I noted that it will be coming back to Council for the next report, and then the next bullet point after that was that site prep moving. Is there an anticipated time frame for the actual ground to be broken to move forward on? There was no timeline in there after the August Council meeting. I'm just being hopeful that you're going to say September right after Council meeting, but I suspect that's not the case.
Depending on, through the chair to answer the question, depending on what timeline in August that we're able to complete the report to Council, and depending on what the outcome or recommendation is of that, there is very good opportunity that we mobilize in September. So if everything lines up according to the current plan.
I'm excited. Councillor McMaster, go ahead.
Welcome aboard, Simon. I don't really have too many questions. I have a lot of concerns, but I think they're the same concerns you and everybody else has.
Yeah.
Probably my one question is, do we know where all these workers are going to live yet?
Through the chair, the general contractor has been talking with multiple residents or business owners along the West Coast. And while there's nothing, because there is no contract in place formally with the contractor yet, there are several opportunities that the contractor is exploring for housing options.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, excellent. Seeing no other burning questions or comments, I just want to thank you again. And again, welcome. It's great to see you here, and it's great to see this project moving forward. And thanks for all the hard work in trying to mitigate some of those, untenable costs. So
Yeah.
Excellent work.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to present an update.
Okay, Council, we're moving on to item 11, bylaws. We have fees and charges amendment bylaw for adoption. I believe we have no report for this. So if a councillor would like to read that recommendation. I caught you off guard. Okay, I'll recommend that the District of Tofino Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 1271.07 2022 be adopted. Seconded by Councillor Steer. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. We have business initiated by council members. Do we have any committee external appointment reports from council? Seeing none, we will move on. No unfinished business. Question period. Ms. Best, do we have anybody signed up for question period?
Thank you, Mayor Law. We currently do not have any submissions, but I will just hold for a moment here. We do have some members of the public in the meeting. So if you would like to ask a question to council, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen and just use that to state your name, and we will then add you to the list. And seeing none, I'm just going to do a second call here. And seeing none, I think we have no submissions or questions.
Super, then. Would the councillor like to read the recommendation to move to closed session? Councillor Chalmers, go ahead.
Sure. I'll move that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant of section 91AC of the Community Charter to discuss matters relating to 1A, personal information about an individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent. C, employee relations.
Seconded by Councillor Anderson. All in favor? None opposed. Motion is carried. We're moving into closed session, and we'll just